Hi, Sebastian. It's wonderful, wonderful to see you back with us again just a few months ago, but I decided that what you're doing is so important that I want to come back and review it a little bit more. So welcome. And
Thank you,
this is
John.
again the books that Glenn was just talking about, what we're going to be talking about today. And Sebastian, I'd just like for you to go ahead and kind of introduce yourself in terms of your background, in terms of the whole field of waking up, was having a spiritual life. I know it was true for you even as a child. I think for many people it is as a child. And the question then becomes one if we can find a way to channel that depth of interest in such a way that we can really share it with the world. So then that and how it is that you started writing these books, and I'm sure we'll go on just fine from there. So let's begin. Thank you, Sebastian, for being here.
Thank you, John, for inviting me to be here with you and with everyone. Thank you also for giving me the opportunity to share the knowledge that I receive through the revelation, which is a knowledge for the new times that we are living right now. Going to what you mentioned before, in my case, I have a direct relationship with Jesus and Mary since I have memory, since I can remind. So I walked through my spiritual path and my life with the understanding that both Jesus and Mary, the angels and heaven itself, were part of what we are and part of our normal life. I didn't see anything extraordinary on that, because that was my regular experience since I have memory. This spiritual path, in union with them, have different milestones according to the way it was revealed to me. One of the milestones was when I was alone at home praying, and suddenly Jesus came to me for the very first time, saying that you have to write for me. You will be acknowledged as a pencil in the hands of God. You are a pencil in the hands of love. That's what he said at that moment. And I started to receive some messages that I write according to what Jesus or Mary or the angels or archangels tells me. And then those messages become books. Not all everything that I receive in terms of revelation is shared, but part of that, that is what is, then transformed into books. One of that revelation is the series of Choose Only Love, which are 7 books. But after finishing that, I kept receiving more messages, and more is going to come at the right time with new books. And this is how I receive the messages and how those messages become books.
Wonderful. So tell us a little bit about what the message is.
The message is basically that we as humanity are ready to live as the Christ that we truly are. It is the time of the direct relationship with God. According to the revelation that I received, we are ready to live in union with God in our soul, in our heart. So that direct relationship that exists from ever and forever and ever between God and the soul is going to be manifested more and more every day in our humanity. So this is what Jesus calls the second advent, which means humanity, human beings, living as the Christ that we truly are, So there will be more manifestation of the union between heaven and earth. And that is also the manifestation of the new earthly kingdom. So the key message here is that we are ready to live as the Christ that we truly are. And the way of living that is to return back to the direct relationship with God. And we are ready to do that. And we are ready and we can do that because we are now in a time in which we can answer the question that we came here to this earthly kingdom to answer. And that question is who we are. And the answer is given to us right now, not before, but right now in our consciousness. And the answer is that we are love and nothing else but love, just because God is love and nothing else but love. So returning back to love is what Jesus calls returning back to the house of Father. And we are now ready to do that individually and collectively. And that's why these manifestations are coming to us, to have, the opportunity to spend time with God and to remember who we truly are.
I think it's interesting that what you're saying is something that a lot of us are experiencing and feeling. One of the ways that I've seen this being manifest, of course, is in the death of the church, which is it's really, really plummeting. It's nearly closed in many places in Europe. I just checked the statistics a few days ago on Google, and back in 1945, 76% of the people in the United States were affiliated, said they were affiliated with some kind of religious organization. It's now 47%. And churches all over the place are closing their doors. And what I'm seeing happening, which is really exciting, and by the way, having been a minister for an awfully long time, and I wrote a paper on the death of the church and the dawning of Aquarius back in the 70s. And I thought it was revolutionary at the time, but it's actually happening now. I mean, we're actually experiencing this in an inner kind of way. You said something to me yesterday about bringing earth and heaven together, and which is something the Course in Miracles says too, that's really what is happening. Now, at the same time that that's happening, my sense is that there is some resistance on this kind of thing, that it's the churches are not dying easily, let's say, put it that way, that there's looking for something kind of material to happen rather than what you're talking about is really happening on the level of mind, and the mind is connected with mind all over. There's a line in the Course in Miracles which says that God is the God of the universe and the universe of universes. And I sometimes wonder, what does that mean? You want to address that? What do you think? What are we talking about? The universe, of the mind of the universe.
Thank you, John, for bringing this to this dialogue. According to the revelation that I received, we are facing and we are walking through the death of everything that we know from the past, not only the church,
Right.
but everything that we know is going to be completely changed, because the new is so new that it is not based on the past. Jesus said once to me, I don't change your being, I give you a new being. Because I'm a creator. I don't need to change anything. I just create a new reality. And that new reality is the new earthly kingdom. In that new reality, heaven and earth are together as it is in truth. Something that was given to me in the revelation is that there is no distance between heaven and earth. There was a time in my spiritual path in which I was brought into a state of consciousness in which the Holy Spirit showed me the revelation of the great truth. And one of that was the fact that there is no distance between heaven and earth. And that is what is going to be more manifested every day in these new times. So there is a convergence between time and eternity, between the universal, the material universal, and what we call spiritual universal. And when we say that we are ready as humanity to live as the Christ that we truly are, what we are saying is that we are ready to live in the reality of what we are, which means our divine nature and our human nature as oneness, as a unity, and that is going to be manifested more and more in every single aspect of the existence. That includes not only human beings, but also other beings like animals, trees, and everything that exists in this universe. And that's why Jesus calls this creation as a universe of infinite universes. And he talks about that several times in the revelations that I received, because each being, each aspect of the creation is a universe itself. And this is going to be more manifested and more understood day after day in these new times, because we have the capacity to create universes of universes, because we are one with God, and God is part of what we are, and we are simply a manifestation of the infinite love that God is. So as a manifestation of that infinite love, we have the power of co-creating with him constantly infinite universes of universes. And that power of creation is constantly being extended from us and with us, no matter whether we are aware of that or not. The new earthly kingdom, the new times, are going to be a time in which we are going to be aware of that, and we will participate on that, and we will achieve the state of fullness, because our fullness is to co-create with God constantly and eternally a new love, which means a new universe.
But we're still working within the framework of these bodies in space and time as we begin to make this transition. And my sense is that there's some resistance to the transition on the part of the, I don't know, part of the ego, I guess, for one thing, that's not going to let go very easily. I'm also reminded of a quote from Buckminster Fuller, who once said, "You don't transcend the old by opposing it. You transcend it by making it obsolete through superior methodology." And I think that what we're experiencing right now is the superior methodology in terms of the way that we can make these kind of direct contacts ourselves. Can we talk a little bit about what I need to do to transform myself so that I become a better hearer, a listener? That must be a part of what you've written about in your book. Address
And
that?
I really thank you very much for this question, because I believe it's essential to the revelation that I received. There was a time in which I was asking myself about that, the same question that you are asking right now. What can I do to, to grow in terms of spirituality or consciousness? And our Immaculate Mother Mary came once to me, and she gave me the answer. And that answer is a spiritual path in itself. The answer is, let yourself be loved. And she said that several times, let yourself be loved. Let yourself be loved. And at the beginning, I didn't understand deeply that statement. But then I realized that letting ourselves be loved is to, give our life to God and to allow him, to allow the love that God is to do everything for us and with us. So we don't need to do anything except for accepting the fact that we have been created to be loved and to be happy forever and ever in the love of God, and to return to that state. And to be clear about this, our Immaculate Mother Mary said to me, I want you to live as a child in the arms of a mother, as a baby in the arms of a mother, returning back to the stage of being my son is returning back to the truth of who you are. We are created as children,
Right.
little children, to be in the hands of God. So as much as we do nothing, as much as we give everything to God, and as much as we allow God to do whatever he wants to do and to accept that process, the resistance that you mentioned before is going to be over, and we can let it go, because the resistance is always a lack of trust, according to the revelation that I received, because we are afraid of the new, we are afraid of the mystery. But when we return back to the state of living as a baby in the arms of a mother, to let ourselves be loved, we open our heart and our mind to the mystery of God, to the mystery of life. So mystery will no longer be something that we are afraid of. So this is how it works in my case, based on the revelation, doing nothing except for letting ourselves be loved and to rest in the arms of my divine Father and my divine Mother, trusting that they know how to, manage our life.
Right. This reminds me of a line from the Course in Miracles, which says that what we're really called upon to, the willingness to let what is true be true. So insofar as we're not willing, then we've got this block, we've got this resistance, which is based upon, I want to do things, I want to run the universe myself, kind of insanity. So it's really as to how do we, there's a line, of course, miracles, you probably know, principle number 7 of the 50 Miracles Principles, miracles, everyone's right, but purification is necessary first. So purification is necessary first, and there's a lot of letting go that has to happen in terms of my expectations that I'm placing out upon the world. And you got any clues on how this letting go? You just turn it over, but it seems to me that again, there's resistance and there's a process that's involved in making this change in ourselves. Address that.
Sure. Yeah, and one of the way of doing that, according to the revelation that I received, is to return back and remain in the direct relationship with God. Our Immaculate Mother Mary said once to me, the only problem you have is that is your interpretations. I mean, we are constantly using our mind to create ideas and make interpretations of the reality. And that's an obstacle, because we create beliefs and dogmas and ideas about how life should be and how things should be, how I have to be, or others. And then that creates resistance when something is different with what we believe it has to be. But when we return back to the direct relationship with God, we have the experience of not thinking by ourselves, but allowing the mind of Christ, the Christ mind, to think in our mind. And we allow the heart of God to feel and to be moved in our heart. So something that I understood based on the revelation that I received is that our mind was not created to think anything. It was created to receive the revelation effortless, without making any effort of any kind, just receiving the revelation. And the same happens with our heart. So if we return back to the direct relationship with God, which can be possible when we go back to our heart, to the center of who we are, and we return back to that direct relationship with God, we are going to receive all the answers we need, all the revelations we need, without any effort and everything that we need as human beings, because love not only created us, but also gives us existence and sustain our existence. So there is no need to make any effort of any kind, because we have a divine mother, and that divine mother is constantly giving life to us. The only thing we need to do in terms of the revelation that I received is to return back to the direct relationship with God, and to stop thinking and stop being attached to the ideas we have. None of our ideas are true.
Right. But we have to see that. We have to understand that all of our projections, the great line in the Course, projection makes perception, which isn't, sometimes students get that confused. They think that they're creating the world, but it's our interpretations of the world that matters. So we got to go through this process of dropping our previous projections so that we can be aware of a new possibility, of a way of seeing. There's an interesting story about Helen Schuckman. At one point, she said to Jesus, "This course isn't working for me." Helen wouldn't get the course, right? And Jesus said to Helen, "Well, why don't you try it? Why don't you do what I'm asking you to do so that you can hear my voice even better?" So that meant setting the block aside. It seems to me a part of this process is that I had to become aware of the block in order to set the block aside. You want to address that for a moment? Becoming aware of where I'm blocked?
Sure. Everything that has to be removed and transformed has to be seen before. And when we see it has to be seen, means that we have to collect that part of our human experience in our consciousness. When we talk about a new consciousness in these times, according to Jesus, what we are saying is that our consciousness is ready to collect all the shadows that we created, all the blocks that we created, and everything that was against the truth of who we are, which in other words means against love, and to collect that into the Christ consciousness, and to allow Christ consciousness to transmute that into love, into more consciousness. So that's why we are facing a lot of shadow in the world, because it's coming to the consciousness to be transformed into more consciousness of love. So when we see these shadows coming to our consciousness, is because they are already healed.
Oh, that's interesting. Already healed.
Yeah.
But then we would, and I believe that, but then we would have to somehow another sense or know that it's already healed. And
Exactly.
And that this requires faith, I suppose, that our Father has already given us the answer, so to speak, and we can throw ourselves into that love.
Yes, and that's why our Immaculate Mother Mary said once to me, in the past, I asked for change. I asked my sons and daughters to change. That was called conversion. But now I ask for trust. If we trust, she said to me, I want you to live as I lived when I was walking in the earth. And it's a way of living in which you trust with unlimited trust in love. So trust with unlimited trust is the way of accepting all these transformation with peace and serenity, because there is no problem with the process itself, but the relationship we have with that process that we are experiencing right now as humanity. So the call here is to move from a relationship of fear to a relationship of love with whatever happens in your life, whatever happens in our consciousness, that is what we Jesus calls love everything that arises in you. If we
Including,
love everything that arises in us, we are not going to experience any resistance, because we are going to embrace everything into love, because we trust that God is managing everything and everything is going to be all right, for the simple reason that we are not the owner of life. Life belongs to God, including our life. So when we give our life to Him, we are returning back to the truth. The truth is that I do not belong to myself. I belong to God. And that is something that we realize and know in that direct relationship with God. And we jump of gratitude because of that truth, because we don't want to belong to ourselves. We want to belong to God, because that's the truth of the soul, and that's our happiness.
right. David Fishman is with us, and I know this is one of David's major themes as well. Trust would solve every problem now. It's a
Exactly.
strong, yeah, strong
Exactly.
emphasis. Right. So it's really a matter of kind of just throwing ourselves into the love. Right. I remember once, many years ago, in counseling with someone, she said, all I want is to belong to someone. And I thought it was an interesting, in terms of, she was talking about romance, uh, in that particular instance. She was looking for a guy, right, that she could really love that way, and had not found that kind of thing that she was looking for. It always comes down to us, though. I love what you're saying. It really is just a matter of loving the clerk at the grocery store and the pharmacy and the post office and all those kind of things, or whatever is in front of me, just whatever it is that's in front of me right now, always. Right?
And
Like,
also inside us.
yeah, it's inside us.
It sometimes is difficult to love, because that's why Jesus says, love everything that arises in you. Because it's not about what others are doing or what is happening outside me. It's about what happens in my heart. If I live in the love that I truly am, if I live in the embrace of the divine love, I will understand with a very deep inner experience how beautiful you are, how wonderful you are, how sacred you are, and you will gain dignity, because love gives dignity to us. And when we have that experience, we will be able to love ourselves as God loves us, which means to love ourselves with unconditional love. And once we achieve that stage in which we love ourselves enough, we are ready to love everything. But love begins with us. So it's so important to love ourselves and to have the experience of being loved. That's why our Immaculate Mother Mary says, let yourself be loved. So you can have the experience of how beautiful you are. And once you have that experience, you will see everything through the eyes of Christ, which is the eyes of love. And everything will change in your life, in your perception, and in your way of understanding everything.
So ultimately, this leads us to the point where we recognize, I think, as Jesus did, that I am the Christ, that I am the Christ, that you're the Christ, that we all are. And that is the place of connectivity for all of us. That could be seen by somebody on the outside as kind of an egotistical thing to say, but not when we understand the depth of what that really means. We are to join Jesus in this mind, the one mind, and Mary, or the whole universe again, right?
Exactly, no doubt about that, based on the revelation that I've received. And that's the meaning of the second Advent, based on these manifestations that I'm receiving. Jesus is very clear about that, and he says that The second advent is not going to be something in which he is going to come back as he did in the first time, because it doesn't make any sense for him to come back.
Right.
And the simple reason of that is because he said to me, I cannot come back because I never went away.
I never left.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So why should I come back if I never left? And I never left because I live in your heart.
Right.
Because I am who you are. When we say that we are listening to the voice of Christ, we should change that expression actually, and we should say we are listening to our true voice. Christ is our true identity, the only identity that is real, because it's the identity that God gives us. And to make this real in your daily life as human being and being manifested in the whole creation is the new earthly kingdom.
So the second coming of Christ is the resurrection of Christ in our hearts. There is no coming out of the heavens on a chariot. It has to be the birth that comes from deep inside of me. But then I have to realize that that is in me, which means getting free of all my guilt and the sin that I think that's buried in there somehow or another. And that requires, I think guilt is one of the most difficult things that we have to deal with in terms of awakening and freedom from the insanity of this world. We don't want to look at it because it's buried so deeply. And yet we've got to look. We've got to go inside. Right? What do you think? Is meditation part of the process that you use personally? Just getting quiet, or it doesn't necessarily require reading the course or your books or anything? Right?
Sure. You asked at the beginning of this session about the main topic of the revelation that I received, the main thing.
Yes.
And one way of answering that is that this manifestation comes to make us aware of the true identity that we have. It is all about identity according to Jesus Christ, because everything that we do is an effect of what we believe we are. Jesus is very clear in that revelation, saying that we came to this world in order to answer the question of who we are. That's the only question we have. And that's the only question that has a real answer. Because that question is about the identity.
Yeah.
The answer is that you are love, and first you have to have the experience of that love, to know who you are. So it is all about identity. Christ is our identity. And once we accept that truth, everything changes in our experience as human beings. One of the things that changes is our relationship with guilt. You said that guilt is something difficult to deal with. And that was my experience in the past as well. And Jesus came once to me, and he knew what happened in my heart without even asking him anything. And he came to me to answer the question that I had at that moment about how to deal with guilt. And he said, it is difficult to deal with guilt because you are dealing with it. You don't have to deal with it. You have to do nothing with it except for just giving it to me. When you have that experience, just forget about that. So it is about where we put our attention, what we pay attention for. And Jesus said that we are in a new time. So the old patterns have to be replaced for the new. And that means that focus on your light. don't even think about sin. Don't even
Yeah.
think about guilty feelings or whatever you don't like. If there is something in your heart that doesn't make you feel happy, just don't think about that.
Yeah.
And he was very clear with that statement saying, if the past creates lack of comfort in you, don't think about that. If the future is me, so give it to me. Don't think about it. Just live your present in my love. So the new is also a state of consciousness in which we can be really present in the here and now in the love of God. So there's no need to deal with anything, particularly with guilt. That's something that I really learned. And I can say, based on my experience, that works when you don't even pay attention to anything that is not loving. The light that you are is going to, bright more and more every day, because you are going to be focused on the light that you truly are. There's no need to be focused on shadows or in anything except for the light that you truly are.
So if I'm focused on the shadows, I'm making the shadows real. And if I'm wallowing in guilt, then it's going to be really hard for me to see beyond what I'm wallowing in. I love your saying, just don't go there, because it is something that's past and gone, and God doesn't see it, and only we are we're making ourselves prisoner to ourselves. And so far as we go back there and wallow around in some of the mistakes that we made in the past, that's not going to do us any good at all. All right.
Yes, and something that we learned when we walk through this new path, which is walk through the light, walk in the light, and be focused in the light, and just leave the past. Or let me say this in this way, as Jesus said to me, let the past be past.
Right.
And that means that we have to, take it away. I mean, to let the past go away. And that means to be focused in the light that you are in the present moment, in your heart, the holiness that you are, and to forget about everything. And when we walk through that experience, we will see that we used to give some kind of identity to guilt, because we say, I am guilty. That means that we are, joining our identity with guilt. And that's why it's difficult for us to say goodbye to the past and say goodbye to the guilty feelings, because we believe that that is part of us. But when we are in the present moment, embraced in the love of Christ that we truly are, we will understand clearly well that that is not part of who we are. Right. The only real thing about you is that you are love, you are holy, you are Christ. The other things that you believe has to say goodbye forever and ever. And we are ready to do that because we are now in a new consciousness, and we are ready to accept that we are holy because we are Christ.
So the process is really one of forgiving ourselves, not asking God to forgive us. That's already been done, but to forgive ourselves because we continue to allow our minds to wander into these dark places. So the Course in Miracles says this is a course in mind training. So we're really learning how to train our minds in such a way that we can be done with that junk, that darkness that we don't need anymore. I never did. And really, like you say, it holds us. It holds us in the past. So we're just looking at, I'm kind of summarizing what you're saying now. We're kind of the eternal now, just the eternal now of heaven and earth for us being one, despite the fact that we still have to continue in the moment, living with these bodies in space and in time. I think that becomes a real challenge. How do I deal with this? Especially if my body is hurting or I'm in pain and I wonder why. then I don't want to, I really don't want to be here. Right? That's a difficult question. How do I open my mind to that? And then we're going to break into questions here in a minute because we've been talking together here for over 45 minutes, just Sebastian and I. And we really would like for you to come on and join us and make any kind of observations or questions you have. Still got another 40 minutes or so to go. So, Bud, are you noticing anything, by the way, in the chat that you'd like to draw attention to? Or shall we just get folks to start raising their hands and coming on screen if they want?
There's a whole lot of chorus of angels going on here. People are responding very positively, Sebastian, to what you're sharing and the message and the intention. And we only have one question in there so far because everyone's just basically on download. It's been this process of just absorbing and sitting in this light and this love.
Lynn, you want to start us? Go ahead, dear.
And we do have one question in chat, just so you're clear.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, go ahead, Lynn, and then we'll do the question in chat.
Namaste, mighty companions. Oh my God. Who would have thought? Who would have thought we'd come together like this? That there is another way. Oh my God. I am so grateful. By the way, I have a poem,
Oh, good.
I have it on the wall, but I put it on here so I don't have to take it down. My poetry helps remind me.
Of course.
Darkness still comes, and I'm trying to work the muscles, and I call this trust.
Oh, good.
No more need to second guess. I am here. It is okay. In your dream, you look with me. I am here. It is okay. Allow all terror, any fears. I am here. It is okay. All are echoes of a path long gone. I'm here. It is okay. I am you. It is okay.
That's particularly beautiful, and I like your poetry, but that one is I love it. I'm here, it's okay. That's what Sebastian is saying. I'm here, it's okay, right?
It's a wonderful mantra.
Yes, it is. It's very nice. Very nice indeed.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bud, do you want to bring up the thing that's in the chat and then we'll have Matthew come on?
Yeah, so here's a question. How does one get from nothing is outside of me to I am the love I am looking for?
Thank you for that question. That question is also talking about our identity. We can move all of the questions that we have into the issue of identity, because based on Jesus Christ's revelation, all the questions we have are related to our identity. So when we think that there is something outside us, it's because we are not connected with what we see or what we perceive from our human senses. And that is because we believe there is separation in one way or another. But once we understand that separation is simply impossible because we are relationship, because we are love, and love is relationship because God is relationship. And in that relationship with God, we understand that we are in union with everything and with everyone. That question disappears. So the answer to that question is to live in the union with Christ that we truly are. There is a space in your heart in which you can live in the union with Christ. That is what Choose Only Love calls the direct relationship with God. If we go deep in our heart and we return back to our feelings and to everything that happens in our soul, in our inner experience, and we are focused on that, and we are constantly aware of what we are thinking, what we are feeling, what we are having as an experience, an inner experience, we are connected with the Christ that we truly are, and we will have the experience of being connected with everything. And that is where love abides. Love abides in your heart and in what you are as human beings. So here it reminds me what our Immaculate Mother Mary said once, and that is that she said, you cannot love what you don't see if you don't love what you do see. When we think about that, the first thing that we see, and what we see for the most time of the day, is ourselves. So loving ourselves is the way of returning back to the house of the Father and embracing everything. We believe in separation when we don't love ourselves. We believe that there is something outside us because we don't love that. And because we think that there is something that doesn't have to be with us. And that is because there is a lack of love to ourselves. But when we love ourselves as we are, everything that we think, everything that we feel, everything that we experience, every time, constantly, no matter what that is, we will begin to love everything. And we will be living in the union of the oneness, what we call the totality. So it's all about loving ourselves.
So it's an inside job, as they say. Let's go to Matthew and then Loretta.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. Appreciate the chance. The comment I want to make is coming up because of the discussion, the dialogue on trust. And I have a feeling that it's closely related to what I understand the feeling of surrender to be as well. The surrender of the old into sort of an unknown that day by day seems pretty cool and cooler every day that it's experienced, the blending. My question is, or comment is, the idea of that was brought up also earlier of new methodologies and new ways of thinking or learning new methods to experience, and then the experience also of putting all of those methods and tools and ways in the toolbox, and then just sort of opening your arms and blending into the trust that I'm talking about. Here's the question. It seems as if that it's not to beat myself up for a period of using tools, of thinking, and thinking is the key word, and thinking and gaining new beliefs and testing those theories. They seem to have maybe served a purpose, or was it just completely a waste of time, I guess is my question. Because surrender seems so easy and doesn't need time at all. Surrender seems like there's no need for a process. There's no need for an evolution. Once the taste of surrender seems to be experienced, it's like, well, why did I waste time with evolution and processes and looking at dark shadows and and all that stuff. But then I also back to the question, but was it necessary in order for me to get to this state of surrender? Is it a paradox that time isn't needed, but then also was helpful? That processes aren't needed ultimately, but were ultimately helpful in getting me to the point of where I realized I never needed them? That's my question. Sorry if that's a long one.
It's okay, we got it. Sebastian?
Yes, thank you, Matthew, for your question. Jesus also talks about that very clearly, and he addresses that topic in Choose Only Love series. He said that it is time to let all of that go away, but embracing that into love, within love, because that part of the process was necessary at that moment. Something that I really learned about this is the following. What it was useful in the past, not necessarily has to be useful today in the present, because we are alive. We are constantly moving. Our consciousness is moving. Life is movement. We are moving constantly. And because the truth is infinite and love also is infinite, our consciousness and our humanity is going to be moved constantly, eternally into more love, more knowledge, more truth, more awareness, and so on. Which means that when we are babies, we don't know how to speak or how to, how to walk or how to run. There is a process, and that process has different steps, and each step was perfect at that moment. So rather than thinking whether that was necessary or not, he said to me, think that that was necessary, perfect, and holy at that moment, and you don't need that any longer. When we do that, Matthew, we disconnect our mind from the past.
Yes.
Because one thing that I found about the thinking mind is that it is very attached to the past, because it is what our thinking mind knows. And it is not open to mystery. It is not open to the new. So we think about the old way of accessing to the truth, just because we don't want to let the past go away. There are infinite ways of accessing knowledge. And the new consciousness is a consciousness in which we are going to access to the knowledge of Christ. We are going to access to the truth in ways that we have never accessed before as human beings. So those tools were valuable at that moment, because that was a way of accessing to the truth at that moment. And now we are opening to new ways, which are the intuition, the direct revelation, the direct relationship, which are new ways of accessing to the truth. But they are not better. They are simply new ways of accessing to the truth. The old was perfect, was holy, and was sacred. And the reason why we can believe in that way, according to Jesus, is because that tool or that thing or that process that brought you into this present moment in which you can be aware of our direct relationship with God must be holy because of what it achieved. So those tools were holy, sacred, and perfect, and we have to honor them, but we have to say goodbye forever and ever, because we are going to receive the revelation directly as never before.
Thank you.
I've got a couple more questions here.
Okay.
Sebastian, can you please speak more of the things in the world coming up because they are already healed?
Good question.
Sure. Thank you for that question also. John, you talk about purification in one of your questions. And according to the revelation that I received, purification is already done. We are living in the resurrection. Resurrection is here and now. We are in the resurrection. What is happening is that we are becoming aware of that.
Yeah.
We are the resurrected.
Right.
We don't need to go anywhere. We don't need to heal anything. We just need to accept the truth that is always true and is being revealed to us. And this is what is happening in now, and what the new earthly kingdom means is the full realization of the truth that everything is, which means that we are the resurrection. We are already resurrected, and we don't need to die anymore. We don't need to go into any other process. We just need to return back to the origin, which means that we live in the direct relationship with God. We have a direct conversation with Him, and we accept that we are love and nothing else but love, and we let ourselves be loved so we can really enjoy existing, because we have been created to be loved and to live forever and ever in the joy of God. And that is the realization that we are going to be more aware of. And that is basically the new earthly kingdom.
Seems to me very clearly that what you're talking about is, we could just call it, an awakening. You know, an awakening within. It's interesting. I got Beth's books. Her previous book was called Awakening to the One Love, and the next one, Awakening Humanity. So that's what we're just quite literally waking up, and in the process of waking up, being done with dreams, especially being done with bad dreams. By bad dreams, I mean fearful dreams, things that would hold us back. And you put it that way too?
Exactly. And you know, John, there was a moment in which I was thinking why we use that word, waking up, that expression.
Yeah, right.
And Jesus gave me the answer to that. And he said, because it's very similar what happened when you wake up. You just wake up. You don't need to make any effort to do that. You just simply wake up. And when you wake up, you're just in a new reality. And he also explained to me that all humanity is going to wake up, and all creation is going to wake up. And there's no way back for that. This is going to happen. We can create resistance in our heart. We can do whatever we want with that, but that's going to happen. We are going to fully embrace the truth, and we will shine forever and ever in the glory of the love that we truly are.
So it's already happening.
Exactly.
It's happening inside every one of us. At the same time, as I said earlier, I can see that some folks are going to be resisting the process of awakening. There's that tendency to want to go back to sleep, you know, like, to knock myself out again. The resistance to giving up my old ways and to giving up my insanity, actually, something like, it's like you're talking about identity a while ago. It's like we want to hold on to some identity of who we think we are, because even though it's not who we are. I've said several times there won't be a John Mundy in heaven, and of course not, you know, because that's just a label that's put on a body, and there's no body there. There's another kind of awareness altogether. All I'm talking about is I recognize that there's a resistance. At the same time, I recognize the existent resistance. I also recognize that the pull into the divine is inextricable. It is happening, and it's happening for all of us. And the best thing to do is to just go with it rather than to get caught up in something. But at the same time, I think that humanity on the whole, there's going to be a good bit of resistance to this process.
Yes, because it's all about identity.
Yeah.
We create resistance to let something go away because we believe it's part of what we are,
Right.
and no one wants not to be. So every fear, according to Jesus Christ, has its origin on a fear of not being. So if we believe we are our history, we are our past, or we are our understanding, it is difficult for us to let them go away. But once we understand that we are one with God, that we are eternal love, no matter what you did, what you are doing, or what you think about, that's not part of your identity. You are not what you think. You are not what you feel. You are far beyond that. And when you go to that place in which you can observe your feelings, your thoughts, and whatever you are experiencing this human experience, in this human reality, you will be more and more aware of the true being that you are and how holy you are. And you will take distance from all of that. And this will not be any resistance anymore, because that is simply not part of what you are. Resistance is always fear of not being, and it's a lack of understanding because it comes from an idea of that I am what I am not.
That's a very good point. And what we really need to look at is the resistance. And then to ask ourselves the
Exactly.
question, why this resistance? Why this recalcitrance? Why this wanting to hang on to something that isn't even real? It seems to me
Because-
one of the things that you're talking about here a lot, which I really like, is you and I and others have spent a good deal of time studying the mystics over the ages. So I know you were into St. John of the Cross and Teresa of Avila and others. So they have their awakening experiences. They turn around and talk about it. But those were kind of individual experiences. But what we're really talking about now is a kind of awakening that includes everyone and everything. I mean, it's all. I thought it was interesting that you mentioned earlier animals as a part of the process here, because I think in a lot of ways animals are better lovers than we are. I mean, if they receive love, they respond really well to love. So that's a kind of something we can maybe learn from them, if you will, that and they're just who they are. They don't have names unless we give them names. I mean, they don't have that kind of identity, that is external identity so much as we do. It's a whole new, beautiful way of thinking, which stands right here, right now. We don't have to wait, not for a single second. Right? That's what you're saying. And
And we,
any question? Go ahead.
yeah, we have got a couple more questions now.
Okay, good. Loretta?
And you were talking about, John, you were talking about resistance and all these challenging thoughts that we have. And that's one of the questions is, how can I learn to love and embrace my judgmental thoughts and thoughts that I think are wrong or mean?
Just choosing only love.
Here you
That's
go.
why it has that title.
Yeah.
Because when we talk about choosing, that means that we can connect with our capacity of choosing. We are constantly choosing, no matter whether we are aware of not. And no matter what happens in your life, you can always choose love or fear. You can always choose love something, someone, or yourself, or not loving. This is an option. In fact, that is the option why we came to be here in this earthly dimension, according to Jesus Christ. We came to this world to make the fundamental option, which is choosing only love forever and ever. Choosing love, choosing life, choosing light, choosing happiness, which are all the same, is an option that we can make at every moment. So it is all about making your own decision that can be made right now, to say, I'm going to love everything that happens in me, just because God wants me to love everything that happens in me, because he loves everything that I am. So loving your humanity, accepting your humanity as it is right now, and your life, and accepting everything that exists in the love that you truly are, is an option that can be made at any moment, and at every moment as well.
Right. I once read an article in Psychology Today magazine that a psychologist had done a study, and he said that we made about 35,000 decisions every day. I thought 35, that's absurd. And then I turned and read in the Course of Miracles, it says every minute, every second, every hour of the day, your choice point, you're making a decision about how you're going to respond to the world that you see, or how you're going to respond even to your own thoughts. So it is that frequent. And so it's just consistent. But what we need is the consistency. The consistency. With consistency, I do not let myself be pulled back into a little piece of insanity. I do not, let's say, have any desire to attack. I don't feel even attacked. And if I do, if I see that thing coming up, I immediately know the right response. I instantaneously know that I give back the love, rather than you give me a wise answer. I mean, a smart answer and smart alecky kind of answer, and the love continues. Nothing can take it away. That's what we're learning. Nothing can take away the love.
Exactly. And something that is interesting in this revelation is that before receiving this revelation about choosing love, or that we are constantly choosing either love or fear, I used to think, as you said before, that we are making so many different decisions all during the day, every day in our life. And I got exhausted of that experience of, having the responsibility of making so many decisions, and how can I do the right thing with so many decisions. But Jesus here is saying something very simple. There are no so many decisions that you are making at all. You are just making one decision every day, every moment in your life, which means whether you are going to live in the love that you are or not, whether you are going to establish a relationship of love or fear. And he said to me something that was really, really important in terms of accessing freedom in my spirit. And that's why I would like to share with you today. And that is the following. He said to me that the problem is never what happens in our life, or what we experience, or what creation is. The problem we have is the relationship we establish with that. So it is not about the illness we have, it's about the relationship we have with that. It is not about the family we have, it's about the relationship we have with that experience, and so on. And we always have two kinds of relationships: a relationship based on love, or a relationship based on fear. One is what we call the ego relationship, and the other one is what we call the holy relationship. So Choose Only Love is coming to the earth now as a manifestation to help us to move from the relationship based on fear to the holy relationship with you first, so you can have a holy relationship with others and with everything. So everything returned back to a problem of identity. If I don't love myself, I cannot love others. And if I don't love myself, that means that I'm not accepting who I am. So every time that I feel resistance, every time that I feel fear, or something that we believe is inconsistent, or whatever we don't like, we can say that we forgot who we truly are. So it is a lack of memory. It is a problem of our memory. That's why Choose Only Love series says that this manifestation comes to us for healing our memory, to heal our memory, the memory of who we are. And when we return back to that memory and we remain in that knowledge, we will never feel anything except for love, light, and truth.
Right. Loretta, you have a question you'd like to come on? You're muted, Loretta. There you go.
I think that the fear of when you get to the fear, it's the ceasing to exist, I guess. And I'm wondering if having a mystical experience, I know John writes, a lot of that, and I believe you had that. And do you think that helps with then when you've had a mystical experience, you then realize that you're not ever going to cease to be? Or you're more from, I don't know. Is it easier? Is it easier if you've had a mystical experience?
Sebastian?
Thank you for that question as well. That's a universal question. It's about death, about what keeps not existing any longer. But once you return back to the true identity and you know who you are, the idea of dying disappears, because you experience in the present moment that you are constantly being who you truly are, no matter what happens in life. So you, in that stage, you are able to see how the world is basically based on things that appear and disappear. So born and die constantly. Ideas, ages, whatever, you name it, everything in this world of time and space comes and then goes away. But you know that that is simply expressions of the same love, which is being manifested in that way. And you have that experience. And once you have that experience, you know that you are observing that. You are the one who is being witness of that life. And when you have that experience, you know that you will never, never die, because you are eternal. And the idea of dying or disappear just doesn't work anymore in your mind. That doesn't come from the fact of having a mystical experience or not, in terms of what we call mystical experience in a traditional way. Because we are accustomed to think that about a mystical experience as something strange or something extraordinary. But mystical experience is your life. You are constantly having a mystical experience because you are alive, because you have your existence, and your existence comes from the source of all life, which is God. So I would say that this knowledge doesn't come from what we call traditionally a mystical experience. This knowledge is something that is part of what we are, and everyone will achieve the acceptance of that knowledge in one way or another at the right time for each of us. This is not a knowledge that is just for some people. Everyone will know that at the right time.
So it's a matter of just living in it now makes it real. Loretta, you want to ask further?
No, thank you.
My experience has been, in terms of having had some what you would call mystical experiences, that not only they're beautiful, but it gives you a sense of reassurance. And one of the nice advantages of you can't lose it. I mean, what you can't lose the memory. You can't forget that this opening occurred. And even though I may have shut it down some now, I know it's there, and I know it can come back at any time. It just probably depends upon where my mindset is at and whether or not I'm open and willing to allow for that process to be true. For me, that's often been just in terms of what I'm sure true for you too, just getting quiet. I mean, just sitting, just being, just sometimes being in an atmosphere of a nature or music or something, but it doesn't even have to be that. It could be driving a car, where you just see. It's just a matter of seeing clearly and then holding that memory. So.
Thank you.
back to Matthew. You got another observation?
Thanks, John. Yeah, I just remembered a question that I had this morning, and it seems apropos to bring it up now.
Okay.
So there was a lot of, over the months, years, seemingly there's been encouragement by myself to consider the idea of, being a creator of my experience, of being a co-creator of a new, of realizing miracles are, things like miracles are a natural occurrence. Conscious miracles, yeah, I guess that's what it is. It's a play between unconscious miracles and conscious miracles. There is the warning, of course, in A Course in Miracles, of conscious miracles being a bit of a thing. But then there seems to be this bit of a question in my mind about, being a creator. And my sense is that when I think of that and think about doing that, that seems to be tethered somewhat in some density of an egoic thought. And that when I go into the light-sided sense of my experience of surrender and trust, that I'm just accepting what is created, that I'm not like consciously creating. That conscious creation then seems to be more tethered to my sense of being a human, or as the Course of Love would say, an elevated self-informed sort of thing. And so my question is that came to me this morning to consider it is, what is the truth with regards to manifesting things in the third, fourth dimension? And is there a difference between manifesting and creating? And then this business of choosing only love, it seems to me when you say we were choosing only love, that we're only experiencing one universe. We're not making 36,000 universes with 36,000 decisions that we're making a day. That the making of the universes, the multi-universes, seems like that's what we're talking about as manifesting and creation. That we're creating new universes. But then when we're talking about choosing only love, that there's no more choosing really going on. You're just being the one. And so my question is kind of mixed in there, but it's about creation, manifesting, and then the oneness, and then the not need to think that you have any control over what ultimately is an illusion, perhaps. I'm complete. I hope you get that question in there.
Sebastian?
Yes, Matthew, and thank you for that question. I believe it's a very important question. I really thank you for bringing this to this dialogue, because that is something that was addressed also in Choose Only Love. There is a chapter that talks about this in the first book. And Jesus says that only love is the source of creation. So only love can create. And the reason is very simple, because God is love, and only love, or only God, is the source of all creation. So we create from the love that we are, in union with the love that God is. In that unity, we are being constantly as God created us to be. And we are constantly creating with God because we are connected to love. And he goes beyond that, and he says, if love is the only source of creation and only love can create, what can you create when you are love? The only thing we can create is more love.
Yeah.
So he says something, I'm sorry, very important in the revelation that I've received, which is love creates a new love constantly. And that is part of another statement that Jesus says, that love makes everything new always. And creation is not what we believe. Creation is what God is. So that is something that we cannot explain with our thinking mind, because what we do with our thinking mind is just an appearance of creation. I believe that is what A Course in Miracles says as, creating and producing, the difference between creating something and doing something from the ego mind. So only love can create and creates a new love. And that love is universal and infinite. And that is the meta-universe that you are mentioning. So creation never stops, because it's infinite. And that is something that we can be aware of, but our thinking mind cannot think about that, because this is not something that can be thought. It is not something that we can put into words with our thinking mind. It is something that just simply we know with our consciousness.
Yeah.
You called it, excuse me, I'm sorry, meta-universe, right? You said meta. Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
meta-universe. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you
like the
for
whole concept of growing in love. I think many times in the Course in Miracles, I think you can use creating and love interchangeably within the sentence, because it is a constant creation. I like to think that, every once in a while I'll experience that I'm falling in love with my wife again. Not that I ever lost it, but that it just continues. It's a continual process of getting closer, communicating, just growing in love. But that's just with a human, and it could be with God, with the universe, with understanding of the beautifulness of just being
exactly.
itself is that's all that's needed. So we're really we're at the end
Making
of our.
it new.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. And making it new, making your relationship with your wife new here and now, because you are being new, she is being new, and you can constantly create a new love within your relationship and love each other in the new way.
Yeah. It's a wonderful feeling. And then that goes with everything, with children and animals and
Exactly.
and the whole of the world itself and all of our brothers and sisters.
Exactly. And John, when you return back to your true identity, you will see how everything is being new constantly, because you are going to have the experience of being new constantly. Something that I really learned from this manifestation is that I was not just created once. I am being constantly recreated and created eternally in a new life. So we are new every single moment and every day. That's why we are able to grow in terms of love and light and holiness every day, no matter what your past was.
So it's a constant awakening. Well, we really are at the end of our time. Thank you, Sebastian. It's so nice to have you back on. And we like to always end with the Lord's Prayer from A Course in Miracles. And Bobby, you still with us? I hope so. Yeah, here you are. I'll put it on screen so that everybody can see it. Enjoy. Bobby's going to sing this for us and read along. There's some the passage this morning. I send out a thing every Sunday morning, you may know, little epistle, and the topic for today was the sleep of forgetfulness. We could talk about that at another time. Right now, let's just enjoy the prayer. Bobby?
Thank you. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you.
in which there are no illusions, and where none can ever enter. Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? The sleep of forgetfulness is only the unwillingness to remember your forgiveness and your love. Let us not wander into temptation, for temptation of the Son of God is not your will. And let us receive only what you have given, and accept but this into the minds which you created and which you love. Amen. Amen. Oh, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you all for being with us today. If you can join us again next week. Thank you again, Sebastian, for your wisdom and your willingness to open yourself to the voice of God and let it speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.